Here at Question Time, we have been looking at possible effects on the market after the election. And Joe, Steve, I want to pose something today. Steve, you really found this. You've been looking at the affected areas, and looks like Big Pharma took a hit yesterday. Joe, don't know if that's going to last, but Pfizer, Moderna, both down, and with the possibility that JFK Jr. is going to have some role in the administration. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think that's the key question, right? We don't know what's going to happen. And we don't even know if RFK Jr. is going to have any role in the administration. There seems to be some expectation that he will. And of course, that's having an impact on the area that he would have control over, supposedly. I don't know exactly where he fits in this administration. I don't think anybody does. So, the companies that do vaccines were hurt yesterday. Um, is it something that's going to last? I really have no idea. But I would just say that this is the problem that we discussed before, where one party's in control. If you have a split government, it's a little bit easier for one side to at least kind of slow things down. But in this case, where it appears that the Republicans are going to have complete control, I don't know what an RFK Jr. can do. I really don't know. And there's a lot of uncertainty around that, and that affects the market. It affects individual stocks. And I would just say that we should expect that, especially in this interim period between now and when the administration actually starts. What we said yesterday was the market's going to move on things like who's going to be Treasury Secretary, who's going to be Secretary of State, things like that. The market's going to move on those things, and that's at least a little more concrete, I guess. But in some cases, you're not going to know what they do either. We don't know, for instance, what's the guy's name that was the in the Big Short? Guy's been talked about as Treasury Secretary, Paulson. I don't. Is it Paulson? Is that his name? Um, I can't think of his name now. Anyway, the point is we don't know what his views are, for instance, on the dollar. We know, for instance, that JD Vance has talked about devaluing the dollar and how he thinks that's important because it makes our exports cheaper and yada yada yada. Look, there's a lot of problems with devaluing the dollar. There's a lot of problems with screwing around with the value of the dollar at all. In fact, I would say that the Treasury Secretary's job most of the time, according to Robert Rubin, was to go out and say strong dollar every time he had an interview. And look, a weak dollar is not good for the economy. So we don't know what a potential Treasury Secretary, for instance, might say about something like that. Just be prepared for it. You're going to see a lot of this stuff. Most of it's going to be noise. We don't know what they're going to do in the end. And I would say, too, that the market is kind of a correcting mechanism. If someone in the administration says something that is too far to whatever direction, the market's going to respond to it. And it may be the market reaction is what gets them to pull back on some policy that's not a good policy. Maybe a good way to judge things. But I don't know. Right now, I think you got to really kind of close your ears and not listen to too much of this stuff because we don't have any idea. And listen, by the way, a lot of these guys too, and again, I don't know what role he has envisioned for RFK Jr. But I don't know if there's a role in the cabinet for him. I don't know where he fits, but cabinet members got to be approved by or have to be or not maybe certain of them have to be approved by Congress and by the Senate. And just the fact that they happen to have Republican control of the Senate doesn't automatically mean they're going to get approved. So anyway, like I said, try to tune the noise out right now. There's going to be a lot of it.
So, Steve, market finished up 1,000 points yesterday. Do you expect a roller coaster values in the market between now and the time Trump takes over? Up and down, back and forth?
Yeah, I think the market's going to change. So I'll go 100% certainty on the market's going to move up and down. And this I think actually kind of points to there may be parts of the market respond differently too, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? Is if you kind of go back, and look at the different sectors, healthcare and specifically the pharma is one that kind of jumps out at you as behaving a bit differently. And it really goes back about 2 months, really kind of about since RFK kind of gave an endorsement and they started talking more and more about him having a role. So it's an interesting emergence. Pharma ETF is down Let me see if I pull this up. Yeah, down over the last 2 months, almost 8%. Well, the market, the S&P is up over 8%. And there's been Barron's, the Wall Street Journal, a few articles, making this point. It's kind of going to Joe's point. They may be creating some uncertainty here, for this particular industry. And uncertainty stocks don't like. The other thing I'd also point out is, to kind of, you want to kind of detach morals, ethics, the greater good, what you think of values from kind of the stock analysis side, right? Because you maybe say somebody who comes in and says, you know what, I don't like those pharma companies, and I'm hoping Bobby Kennedy comes in and cleans them up. And let's say that happens. Well, that could be bad for the stocks. They may not like overregulation getting cleaned up, could be a greater good. You may be, Bobby Kennedy's like crazy. He doesn't understand any of this. He's going to come in and muck things up and make sure people don't get mad. Well, that could be bad for the stocks too, because you know what? In either scenario, so the stocks generally don't like more regulation, more uncertainty. So sometimes it's kind of good to detach from whether you think this is good or right or wrong and just kind of focus on what moves the stocks, at least from our business perspective. And yeah, I think there's a legitimate argument that putting a guy who's in the business of suing a lot of these companies in charge of them might cause some of these boardrooms to be a little nervous. So, we got to kind of keep an eye on who these appointments are, what impact do they have on the market. But yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that this sector does seem to be one that isn't participating in the Trump enthusiasm, and it is one sector where Trump's kind of come out without saying a specific appointment, really kind of made the point that a specific person may be involved. So, worth keeping an eye on.
Joe, I have heard you say many times about people's statements. Don't look at your investment statement all the time, or you'll go nuts. And it sounds to me like what we're talking about today. Same thing. Don't look at your statement. I was in TV for 20 years. I learned don't listen to the polls. So would you agree that you just want to be selective? Don't be so focused on this stuff that you're just going to beat your head against the wall.
Well, I think too, you gotta take everything that's coming in now and market reaction to it too. I'll give you one. Here's one that I thought was kind of amusing yesterday. Amusing. I don't know. It was odd. We know that the new Trump administration, or I guess the old Trump administration, whatever, they're not going to be favorable towards green type stocks, right? Solar subsidies and things like that. But there was one company yesterday that did go up that's in that business, and it was Tesla. And so a lot of what happens in a Trump administration is transactional. It has to do with personal relationships. But the man is mercurial. He something happens and suddenly that guy's out and Tesla stock's going to go down. So I think you got to be careful about buying or selling anything based on whoever's in today, because they may well be out tomorrow. So I just think you want to be careful about and make your decisions based on fundamentals, rather than the perceived benefit to Tesla of Elon Musk being close to Donald Trump. Because again, you guys know how this works. We went through the first administration. How many people did he get rid of out of the cabinet in the first administration? So, the fact that he's in good graces today doesn't mean he's going to be in good graces tomorrow. I also question, I wonder how in the world would you craft policy that would be beneficial to Tesla, but not everybody else? I'm not sure how you can do that. Anyway, yeah, I think you're right. Don't pay, I don't want to say don't pay any attention to it. I mean, I think you kind of have to because it moves stuff. But just take everything with a giant grain of salt. And also remember too, Trump negotiates, right? So he says things that maybe aren't exactly where he's going to go in the end. We don't know where the end is going to be. And so the market might move on some comment or something at a press conference or something. The market moves, and then, a week later it gets walked back and maybe it's not quite that bad. And then so you're going to get extra volatility is the point. You're just going to have to look past it. So yeah, put it this way. If you're an average investor, look, we have to do this. We look at the markets every day. But average investor, if you used to look at your account once a month, I might look at it every 3 months now. I certainly wouldn't look at it every day because it's going to be moving around and you can be like, what happened there? There was no news. And the news was something out of DC that you didn't see. So just be careful about reacting to every little thing that comes out of there.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's important for people. If you hear something and it doesn't sound right, don't be a sheep. Don't just go with the herd. Go do your own research and think about it. Be who you are. So all about you. So have a great day. We will see you tomorrow.